Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I'm super excited to chat with you all this morning. And if you can't tell, today we're going to talk about eyewear, eye mask, eye protection to keep you safe and healthy during this pandemic season. So welcome to all of you. Looks like YouTube is running pretty okay this morning. So I just want to let everybody know if you need a backup, Instagram is always a sure thing. So welcome to all of you. Curious as to where you all are tuning in from. So just let me know what city, state, country you're watching. And we've got Lori P and a whole bunch of other fantastic folks on board, Ritterak and Moz Girl. So welcome everybody. This morning, we are going to dig into some more statistics and research that showcases just the power of protecting the 3 core infection sites with COVID-19. We know that the nose and mouth are the main areas that people reference, but a lot of times we're forgetting eyes. So I want to share in today's video the eyewear that I'm wearing. So I'm going to take this off because it's going to leave a mark on my face if I don't. But we'll dig into what these are. These are actually all available for you to grab. And I'm providing a link to Amazon because they're quick and easy and you can get these things tomorrow. So if you're interested in any of the links, they're down below. But welcome all of you. I see we've got folks from California and Texas and Michigan and Decatur, all right, in my neighborhood. And we've got Pat and Ron moderating. So thank you all for tuning in. So I want to go over some news and share with you some clinical findings, some new research that's out literally just this week, and highlight for you a little bit about what's going on that is an encouragement to actually the efforts of wearing facial protection. So masks like my friend Sarah makes that are adjustable around the nose, that have the ties and actually give you the right degree of protection. And all of these are listed below. So let's dig into news and then we'll dig into the details that I want to share with you today about eye protection, most importantly. Okay, so globally, we're at 4.897 million cases. The US is at 1.558 million cases. We've had almost 92 and a half thousand deaths. So the fatality rate is at 92,258. And I'm watching some states. The state that's really on the incline is Illinois. They're at 98,000 and they are jumping about 2,000 cases every day. So we will see them hit 100,000 very shortly. Earlier this week, I mentioned that Georgia the Department of Health was putting out some misleading information. The x-axis on a chart was just basically they kind of changed around the dates just to identify and show a slope. And actually, I think I have that information here in my little pile of details. So Georgia was kind of altering our cases. So these dates were all completely out of whack and out of order by sometimes even a week or two. And the real cases, they finally identified this more appropriately once they got called out. And it shows, we've had a few kind of rises and dips and then rises and dips. Well, Florida, you guys know I'm always watching Florida news because that's where I grew up and that's where I started my business. I have a lot of friends and family there still. Well, the Florida Department of Health, the website that is run for their COVID dashboard, which is supposedly what the governor references as he's making all these decisions about Miami-Dade, where there's a big hotspot in South Florida, and then other areas, Naples and Jacksonville, Pensacola, Tallahassee, Tampa, St. Pete, Gainesville, all over the state. They reference this dashboard. Well, apparently, about 2 weeks ago, it was discovered within the government of Florida that the individual who runs it was putting up incorrect data, and the data was not accurate. So the data was wrong, and it was being manipulated, very similar to Georgia. So, manipulated data does not allow us to make the right choices. And in fact, it tends to lean towards where the manipulation wants us to go, which is reopening sooner, faster, and might forego safety. So the individual was moved out of her job. I believe she was fired. And what they're doing right now, this all started, it was on, I think, the 6th or 7th of May when she was moved out of her job. So they're looking at about 2 weeks now where they're trying to assess the true death toll. And they've estimated there are hundreds of deaths that have not been tallied or calculated or put on this dashboard. And Florida's cases aren't always matching up with some of the national numbers, which has been challenging. So, we've got Brandy, my friend and wedding photographer on here. Hey, Brandy. So give it up for Florida and manipulating their information. But that's really telling because Florida there are some areas and pockets where there's still hotspots, and there are others that aren't showing, cases as potentially many as they might be. One of the things that they've identified is that, and this is actually, I think this is really telling. So this is specifically about Florida and the additional deaths that have not been tallied. So this is the estimated, and this red line is what they actually see potentially as the deaths that will be recorded as COVID-19 deaths. Some of these might be individuals that have died at home, but are showing those signs, the blood clots, the heart attacks. And then I don't know the details, but I would imagine they're probably running through and potentially testing some of these individuals. But the expected deaths versus the actual, this is, I believe, the line that's reported, and then this is the anticipated with these new numbers. So we have Sue Sunny says, wondering how many deaths we would have had if we hadn't isolated, quarantined, distanced, or mask, gloves, etc. Correct. So pretty crazy stuff, but Florida is on the hook right now for articulating more information news. I also want to highlight, I know a lot of you are watching from Texas and even folks in Arkansas and folks in Arizona. Some of these states are not reporting prison numbers and the meatpacking numbers. So those COVID clusters that are in meatpacking centers, like with Smithfield and some of these other ones in these cities, in these states, the states are actually not adding those numbers to the caseload. So I think this is just pretty darn crazy. And, you just can't be an informed citizen if you don't have all the details, nor can our professional, the professionals in charge. And the question is, are they in charge and they're the ones, deciding that they don't want to report all this? That remains to be seen. But regardless, we need to have the right reporting mechanisms. So Brittany Bundy, what about the deaths they are labeling COVID that did not die of that? So this is one of the things, Brittany, I'm going to tell you. What they've identified, a heart attack can actually be triggered by COVID. You can be asymptomatic and have a cytokine storm, and you have a blood clot or a stroke. Those are the cases they are articulating, but they're articulating them when they swab the post-mortem, if they can. But what they're doing is they're looking at in autopsies all of the systemic inflammatory situations, and they do qualify. I mean, the reality is COVID, and I hope you tune in regularly. COVID is not just a respiratory illness. And I now have been reporting for over 10 and a half weeks daily. I report to all of you regular viewers, all the news, the data, the research. And Brittany, I hope you'll go through my playlist and get educated on all of the details. But the count of those individuals, I think also, I know New York is, and they got some flack for that. But as we learn more, and again, we learn, here's Daisy. We learn more and more about this virus. It becomes imperative that we articulate the cases thoroughly. She says, I doubt they didn't count them all, considering hospitals are getting paid more to count them as COVID. I'm so confused. So I'll tell you this, if somebody dies in their house from COVID, they won't go to a hospital. The coding for COVID is more, particularly because of the not preventative. We don't have any preventative measures, but the amount of treatment. Some people are on respirators and ventilators for 5 and 8 weeks. That's a lot of money. And I don't know if, have a sense of like what that hospital bill would look like, but that's in the millions. So I do know that it's not just the hospitals. We're talking about, you have county coroners or individuals who are in charge of like the medical examiner. So let's say somebody, you have a neighbor, you check on them, they're not answering, a suspect, you call the police or whoever, calling, you knock, nobody's answering. You call, the authorities come out, they find that your neighbor has passed away from a stroke, or they're in bed or on a couch, which is very, very classic of this situation. That body doesn't go to the hospital. They would go to the county, city morgue, or, whatever. It's either the medical examiner or the coroner. In some states, in some cities, the coroner is not identifying them as a COVID case, even though they really did die of COVID. And many of them, they can identify that these individuals, and some of this is through the contact tracing that's happening, they can identify those individuals went to a testing site. Maybe they went to their doctor, they were told to convalesce at home. And we know with this, it can turn and really get drastic. And that's another reason why you want to have a pulse oximeter. Folks seem to be breathing fine. They're talking. They might be a little out of breath and tired, but they don't attribute the fact that their oxygen levels are in the 20 to 30 range. And that should be a cause for them to go to the hospital. But if they're at home and they're alone, not always tuned in to the news and details about this specifically. So there's just a lot of unknowns, and we have to expect that. But what I'm reporting today in Florida and, recently in Georgia, the manipulation of the data. I mean, that is very, very disturbing. Known data, known cases, and just a desire to not report some critical hotspots, prisons, and, meatpacking industry, individuals. So anyway, I'm not picking on you, Brittany. I hope you didn't take offense to that, but, it definitely is very confusing. And, I think as we continue through this, things will get sorted out, but it's just important to know that, some of the numbers in your local area might not be true 100%. So just know, and that's why we're going to talk about today, eyewear, protective eyewear, because you want to equip yourself and empower you, your body, and your families to be safe. And so the entry points primarily are eyes, nose, and mouth, sometimes your hands if you're touching your mouth, eyes, and nose. But, everybody's being really good about using hand sanitizer and minimizing, some of that engagement, but we still have to be cognizant that we're dealing with an aerosolized virus. So eyewear is going to be key, and we'll get into that. Speaking of just kind of the situation, Sweden, I want to highlight Sweden. So a lot of times people that argue, against quarantine, arguing against mask wearing and, even intense testing. Sweden has topped Europe in terms of the COVID death per capita, meaning that for every million citizens, there's been 6.25 deaths. So, you don't have 6.25 deaths, but, 5, 6, 7 individuals out of a million have died in that country. The next country that is comparable is the UK, and the UK is up there on the scaling with Russia and Brazil now. So it's, the US has 5 times the most, we have 5 times the amount of cases as the next country. And right now it's Russia and Brazil and then the UK in that order. But I thought that was really, I want to highlight that even though Sweden didn't do full lockdown and they still have classes and people are socializing, they're still being cognizant, but there's other factors at play. But we need to know that their death per capita is high, which is risky. I do want to highlight some important things. The subway, I meant to print this out for you. The New York subway system, they bought 150 big UV lamps. It's $1 million investment, and they are able to clean 3,500 cars a day through this process. And they actually have facilities in Queens called the Corona Maintenance Facility, and that's where they all go into, particularly at night. But what they've also identified is that, if the train's running on, one track and it's, let's say It's one borough to another borough. At the end, before it goes off, they put in the UV lights as well. So they're sanitizing, they're cleaning at every end. And I think that's important to note. They're saying that, some of these trains are getting six, 7, and 8 cleanings. Then nighttime, they get this whole UV cleaning. And they literally will set up like 2 lamps in a car, close the doors, and just for 5, 10, 15 minutes, they do a full UV cleaning. And there was a picture of, this steel car with radiating mega light. And I think that's important to note, as we'll see that's a pilot program. They're setting up the lamps and closing the doors. And they're also doing this at the end of the stops. Now, hotels may be implementing this. There is one single hotel in Spain that is open. It's a Shaw wellness clinic. It's a medical clinic and a hotel. It's kind of one of these destination wellness retreat type of places. They are open to guests. They're requiring that guests take 2 negative tests before they check in. So you have to be negative and have 2 negative tests within days of checking in. And then anybody who stays at the hotel gets a free antibody test. And they have, it's the only hotel that I've noticed at all in this category, but they have them test 24 to 48 hours before they check in. So they're being really diligent about making sure folks are not having any type of challenge. Let's see. Pau says, please pray for my friend Kim, who just lost another family member to COVID. For those that say this virus is a hoax, it is not. Oh, sorry to hear that. It's a no joke virus. It's a novel virus that's attacking our bodies in a totally new way. And we're learning more and more, especially with the children. So I do want to highlight McDonald's. Apparently today, McDonald's workers across the US are going to be on strike, and some of them are striking out because there are 2 sets of big class action or employee focused lawsuits against McDonald's. Up in Illinois, 5 employees are suing them. And then in California, because of the lack of they're not providing hand sanitizer, gloves, masks. And they're also in Illinois, they have not notified the fellow employees when a fellow employee tests positive for COVID, that's just insane. So it's a responsibility of a business to inform others. And, that place is so terrible anyway with food, but people work there. I know a lot of us, our first jobs were in fast food. I worked at Taco Hell for my first official job outside of babysitting. And so McDonald's is definitely getting hit. California, that location, they filed an administrative related suit. And then Vegas, I want to highlight Vegas Airport. They have installed vending machines with PPE. So, Vegas Airport's kind of wild. You can get off while you're waiting for baggage. You can do some, play the Wheel of Fortune or, do some slots. Well, you can also hit a PPE vending machine. So, I think some eye masks and, paper, surgical masks going to drop out of the vending machines. And I think that's a great idea. I would probably say we might be seeing this also along subway lines, when you get to the point where you're waiting for the train. It just reminds me of waiting for the train in Japan. They used to serve hot coffee in these vending machines. So you can get all sorts of great things out of vending machines. Okay, so let's see. Is there a black light or something that can show if you missed a spot cleaning the virus? That's a very good question, Mangomia. I don't know that, but I do know that what New York will probably be looking at are the special coding. And in fact, our school had our principal, the head of the school, had the first of several town halls for parents about what their kind of plan of attack is. We still don't know what things are going to look like come fall session, but they were talking about all the different building improvements and changes, like touchless everything. So they're getting rid of all light switch, so kids can't turn light switches on. Touchless, hand washing stations, getting rid of any of the kind of gathering points, which is unfortunate. The school is a really great school. They have this really big corridor and little areas where kids can kind of sit, and tables where they can do work and outside study. And it looks like those might be allocated to some classroom so that they expand the space kids have amongst each other. But I'm not aware of any black light. As far as we know, you can't black light somebody and go, oh, you've got spots of respiratory droplets that have the viral load. You'd have to test the actual particles. Okay, so one of the things that I also want to highlight is, and this is part of our conversation today. There is a new article, and I believe this has been peer reviewed. Okay, so this is out of Nature. This is straight off, and it was accelerated because of the nature of the data. So this is an assessment of the pathogenic transmission of this coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, in golden hamsters. So you guys know my son is in love with hamsters, ABC mouse. He's growing little hamsters and feeding them every day. And Easter, I got him the whopping hamster. So the golden hamsters were part of this trial. So it's not human-based, but what they did is they analyzed 2 scenarios, and the hamster quantities were 15 and 12. So what they did is they had a cage, and they had a little kind of dividing wall. So they had, so many hamsters on one side, so many hamsters on the other side. And then the first part is no sort of covering on their faces to protect their little cute noses from the coronavirus. So, and this is out of Hong Kong University. It was a study actually that was received. This data was received in March 26th. So, I mean, think about that. That was kind of in the beginning for us here. It was accepted into the Nature publication on the 7th, and then it was published online on the 14th. So this, has been going on back in February and March. They put these 2 sets of hamsters in. The one set of hamsters had viral exposure, contact. They were, exposed and were contagious. So the transmission point and the one set on the left side of the cage, these guys are infectious hamsters. Then this little divider, and then they've got the other free of viral exposure. They plop them in with no face coverings, and there's a little barrier. And basically, out of the 15 on the one side, they were not wearing masks. The infection rate was 66.7%. So no sort of protection, no barrier to their exposure. The 66.7. So 10 out of 15 of the hamsters on the side, the healthy side, got sick. Then, and it was over 7 days. So the incubation rate was 7 days. Then the next part is they say, okay, well, we're going to take that same group that was infected. We're going to put in another group of golden hamsters, but this time we're going to put up these little masks on them. So they make these little hamster masks, and the transmission rates dropped as low as 75% just by them wearing a mask barrier. So 2 out of 12 were exposed and got sick. So the difference is 16.7% on average, that's the transmission infection rate with a barrier. Without a barrier, 66.7%. So any of you who are hearing friends or family or see on social that masks are not effective, I don't have to wear a mask, they're violating my civil rights, and I'm free to do whatever I want and breathe on whoever I want. This study is going to be a big change in terms of their argument. Yes, they are golden hamsters, but they are even in closer proximity than what we're trying to do in social distancing. And the one thing that is missing in here that I do want to highlight is, and how you do this with a hamster, are eyewear, eyeglasses, some sort of protection to minimize your transmission. And there are all different types of eyewear. This happens to be clear. And this is just like a work, kind of thing. We actually put these on Gabriel. So I actually ordered in the very beginning of all of this, I ordered a case of these. They're linked down below on Amazon. They'll come in a day or two. So they're actually back in stock. But these I ordered, and these are what I give out to all of our delivery folks. So we have, I think 20 or 30 showed up, and people take these. These guys, this takes a little bit more time. But these are full-on goggles. I mean, they're not fitting me the best because I have to adjust it. But you can cinch this up. I mean, this is like, we've got our little pool and we're going to set it up today for Gabriel. But this, I could go underwater if this fit correctly. And, this is a much better mask to help minimize that exposure. But what we have to consider is just not wearing the masks only. We have to also think about the additional transmission point. And when we're thinking about how do we protect ourselves if we are out and about and we, depending on the tolerance level. I actually had somebody who commented on my Instagram post yesterday, a whole bunch of stuff about how she was shocked. I am, supportive of X, Y, and Z and, whatever. Her tolerance level, she was like a 4 or 5, very open, not wearing masks, very much against all of this. Well, this data shows if you just wear a mask, you're just going to reduce your potential transmission rate by up to 75%. That's significant. Then what I'd love to see is data on also eyewear. So, maybe we don't look at golden hamsters, but maybe we look at a different type of study. But I would love to know what this role is, because this is another transmission point. And there have been a lot of folks that have said, I've taken every precaution. There's a virologist who actually has, I believe he's still in the hospital, who was hospitalized with COVID. He believes his transmission point was flying for his job, and he was wearing a mask. He was, making sure he had all the protection and cleaning and all this. He claims that the only thing that was exposed during his whole time there were his eyes. So if he had been wearing eyewear, he firmly believes that would have been reduced. I think this particular study assesses a barrier over the mouth and nose. I have a feeling that this would be very similar if we looked at a barrier over the eyes. So just with a mask, a barrier over the mouth and nose, we drop it down to 16.7% transmission. If we dropped it even further, it would be because of an addition of eyewear. Okay, so that's really critical. And I will post this. I'll post the data here. I didn't get a chance to this morning. And the other thing too that I want to highlight is JAMA, which is the Journal of American Medical Association. They put out a brief report a little while back. It's published online at the end of March, but they post some data out of China, several different author affiliations, so several different hospitals throughout southern China, and they look at the ocular findings of patients with coronavirus. And so some of the ocular or eye-related manifestations these ophthalmologists were starting to see. Well, the big thing is ocular manifestations would come from direct transmission. And so we know that, that exposure is going to be critical. Let's see. So Mangomia, sorry to get so technical, but would goggles be better to seal off gaps, or do regular sunglasses or wrap glasses work just as well? So, that's an excellent question. Ideally, and what you're going to see, like the medical professionals, not all of them. You see a lot of images, they've got the shields, but there's still air that comes up. Ideally, your most protective is something like this that's cinched off. That's, very, very tight. Okay. And I haven't made it tight because I don't, I get all marked up. But yes, this would be the most tight. It'd be cinched up, minimal exposure. The next step would be some degree where there's some wraparound here. And basically, we know that this is an aerosolized virus, which means it lingers, these air droplets, air particles, from folks not wearing masks. Okay, this is a big factor with the whole mask wearing. You minimize the droplets by wearing masks. So if we minimize the droplets from mask wear, we minimize just the degree of how many aerosolized particles there are. So regardless of the aerosolized particles, they're in the air 2 to 3 hours, and they can stay up in the air. And that aerosolized nature is critical. And what is critical about that is it can be everywhere. I mean, they have tested in hospitals, they're on the ceiling, on blinds, on bathroom handles, the whole entire room, patient rooms of these patients with COVID-19, the droplets are everywhere. And we know from reportings I've shared with you, the transmission rate, the speed out of the sneeze or cough or even talking can be up to 50 miles an hour. That's the force these aerosolized droplets. We can't always see. When it's cold, you can see the mist. That can go out a long way. Well, we know it can go 23 to 27 feet out. And that's a significant factor. So when we talk about minimizing exposure, this is critical that we also talk about how are we doing that. So straight on, for sure. If you're going to walk through a cloud, just think about like a foggy, misty cloud. That's in a broader sense what we're dealing with an aerosolized viral droplet. Clouds, they're just everywhere. So when you walk through something directly, the key is the direct and then the indirect here. Now you can still get some, and you guys I don't know if you can see this, but there's still little openings here, but not a whole lot. And then down here, it's cinched, there's some cinching here, but it's open here. So is this 100% reduced protection? No, but it's better than zero. Ideally, these would be better. These are going to, like, I looked on Amazon today, and actually, let me pull it up, hopefully without getting you guys out of here. Safety goggles, these guys, this takes a while. These would arrive June 23rd. But I remember placing the order and they came a lot faster. And it's a 2-pack, and they are used in an assortment of things like construction. But there is something called the black onion goggles. These were not up when I was placing my order, and I have a link down below for all of you on YouTube. These guys actually, they're fog-free lenses, and they're goggles, but they've got a kind of foam padding, and it looks like, let's see, from the pictures, when I was looking at it, they cut out this, so it creates this barrier, this foam barrier. And they advertise it as for folks that are cutting up onions. You know how sometimes you get like the crying, that onion gas, and that's aerosolized. When you cut into an onion, it releases, it's actually a protective form for the onion. It's what the onion's trying to make you, human, not eat it. And so it releases this gas that can be toxic for us and causes us to cry when we're chopping it. It's like a skunk, and so we don't see that, but we feel it. When we wear eye protection, it protects us from the onion gas. This is the same thing. You can't see the onion gas, but all of a sudden your eyes start tearing. And I know some onions are way more powerful, like shallots kill me. I have to wear goggles when I wear shallots or when I cut shallots. Morrison Monica says, was that just any kind of face covering, or does it have to be P95? So that is an excellent question. And in here, let me go through a little bit more of the detail about the hamster coverings itself. So let's see. I want to get the specific details about the covering. They looked at their fecal sample. Let's see. I mean, they go into the viral load within them. Let me just see if I can get you the specific details. And they considered the contact, direct contact is what they listed it as. Let's see. Let's see if I've got the specific data on this. I don't think they put him. I don't think they put an N95 mask, like a covering on them. I believe it was a 1-layer cover. Let me see. They even do all the tissue samples of the ones that it expired. They look at the brain, the liver, so they identify even let's see. So they actually said this is the transmission. And then they also look at, there's a HEPA filter that they put into place. So I think that's very interesting, but they had like 1.8 centimeters of coverage. So that would be like if you're right next to somebody checking out. Okay, here we go. Filters. The filter is a paper-based filter that they show on here. And they even get into like the bedding. They had corn cob, like food. What we can assume from this, and I'll dig way further into this. It didn't really detail like the exact component of their protection, but it does show the difference of being exposed without anything over their little mouths, and then the exposure, the risk factor with a covering, a barrier. And the barriers are going to be critical as we get back to normal life and kind of addressing, schools going back into session. We're now seeing, yesterday I reported Notre Dame is identifying earlier classes so that they don't take any breaks and that kids are done by Thanksgiving break. Now, New York University, a school in South Carolina, I can't remember, but we're starting to see schools coming back on board. Okay, so, but I think this is really interesting. Some of the things that were found in the ocular findings. So really dig into, okay, let's see. I'm going to answer some questions too. K Diddy 44. What about the full face clear plastic masks? Are those safe and available? Yeah. Okay. So, I'm assuming you're talking about the one where it's like a band and it kind of goes around. So that is the traditional mask covering that a lot of clinicians wear. I know you can buy those. And I'll put up a link, at least on my YouTube video, and I'll try and figure out if you want to DM me, I can send you a link. There are some companies where I've ordered things for the clinic when we get back to open that you can buy. But the other thing that I have noticed is that, the truly locked down medical professionals, they have, hair coverings. They have some some are wearing glasses, like everyday glasses, which that is a protective element. Or they're wearing a little bit more of like that onion type of goggle. Then they've got the mask. And a lot of times you see them wearing 2 layers. Sometimes there'll be an N95 and then they're doing a cloth covering or a surgical mask covering. And then they've got the clear covering. So that there's so many layers of protection. Something is better than nothing. I know like Sarah is making masks every day for us and she's so fantastic. I think she joined us yesterday. But these masks are great because there's 2 layers to them. And this is what the University of Nebraska has identified. This type of mask is the one that gives you the most protection from homemade masks. So it gives you an insert layer, and this type of material is thicker. So there's a big difference between like this sweater I'm wearing. This is really thin material. This is thicker. So you get where this is more of a barrier than this material. So that's another factor when you're considering, who are you buying from and what the material is. And then it has an insert where you can put the N95 or the 5 carbon layer filter that bumps it up into the N95 level. Okay, so side note, Marubi, I ordered the Himalayan inhaler. Love it. Swimming goggles. Yeah, so use swimming goggles. Kids, that's how, if we go out with Gabriel, he's going to be locked down. Am I right in thinking that if I were to come into contact with the virus, if it were just very minimal exposure, would I be less sick? No. Any type of exposure, the virus is a virus. Even one droplet, the reality is you have to have a certain degree of droplets. It's kind of one of these things where, will one droplet do it? Some people, their immunity, potentially the asymptomatic cases, they've come into contact with it, but for whatever reason, it doesn't blow up into a full-blown situation. But exposure is exposure, and you can be asymptomatic with it. You can have it and be a carrier. And there's no rhyme or reason to that. We don't know that you would be asymptomatic or you would be really ill. We do know if you have some underlying health concerns, it puts you at a greater risk: high blood pressure, diabetes, heart challenges, cardiovascular disease definitely puts you at a greater risk category. If you already have to wear glasses, I guess you have to wear the larger ones. Yes. Brian makes fun of me. I have all these big sunglasses. Let's see. Lady Lump. You know what? DM me. Sometimes it won't let me message you, so it's easier if you DM me. And the one thing is, I'm not running a lot of my messages, but we'll make sure we get things to you. The proteolytic enzymes, if you just go to my website, naturalhealthresources.com, go to shop and then go to supplements, that'll take you in to my full script store, and then you can buy all of those things that you want. Okay, so the what I want to highlight specifically, like these ocular findings, I think this is very interesting and telling in terms of some of the challenges these patients have. There are patients that have COVID and present with eye issues. They have conjunctivitis. They have blood values where they have higher white blood cell counts. The neutrophil counts are higher. The C-reactive protein is higher. There might be some ocular abnormalities. And maybe that was pre-existing, just like the vascular, heart abnormalities. But what they find is that there will be some individuals who have respiratory challenges, and others just have like the pink eye conjunctivitis. And this is something they look at a total of 38 patients in this. And 12 of the 38 present with conjunctivitis, conjunctival hyperemia, chemosis, aphoria, and then increased gunkiness. So they had more kind of mucus or, eye goop, either throughout the day and or when they woke up, some of the eyes were almost shut. Blurred. The other thing, none of these individuals, actually had people ask, I have blurred vision, do I have COVID? None of these individuals in this study showcase blurred vision. Many of them have a blood ox level. So when they're, in the office with the optometrist or in the hospital, their O2 levels are 93% or less. And so I think that's a really important point to note. So they did say that many of these patients that had ocular abnormalities, they had some underlying systemic type of inflammation or some underlying manifestation that came up. So some of the symptoms, cough, congestion, secretion from the eyes, itchiness, redness, some even had chest tightness. So I think that is kind of interesting, but they do talk a lot about the virus exposure in the eyes, and that being a factor in terms of our transmission. So also I want to highlight from our CDC, they actually have a little bit more detailing about the eye protection. And so this was dated, let's see, when was this? So it was posted in the middle of March, but they talk a little bit about, the type of eye protection you can wear. This also is for medical individuals. So like the disposable or reusable devices. I actually am going to be doing a specific video about UV. I don't know if you guys know this, but YouTube pulled my UV video from a while back. I think it was a Saturday live show where I talk about my air filter. And for some reason, that was not a happy video. And I have a feeling somebody tagged it. We have had a lot of disgruntled viewers. And so it got pulled for whatever reason. But I want to do more specific because you can have these things and sanitize these and reuse these. Same with your masks. Same with any type of equipment you're using, phones. So that's something also to be considered. But the big key is, the eye protection. You don't want to be touching, the eye protection if you're out and about, but it definitely is something you want to add to your mix. So, wear your sunglasses. Not everybody likes wearing sunglasses in stores, but this is where the clear, but if you were to wear this, you want to make sure you clean your hands before you either remove your sunglasses and put this on so you lower your transmission. So if you were to go shopping, what I would do is I'd park, take my glasses off. I'm always wearing a hat, so I always have my hair covered, because I'm trying to protect my face from the sun, and have a mask and I have eyewear, and that would be what my exposure would be, my limiting my exposure would be, these or these. When we went to the nursery, which was now over 2 weeks ago, I had my mask on, I had my sunglasses, I had my gloves that I use when I'm driving. And that I felt comfortable with that minimized exposure, even though the woman had her little, mask down here, and told her, I was like, it's a lot easier wearing this mask than a CPAP mask in an ER. And she's like, oh yeah, good point, and put it up. But this was Sarah's. It's very comfortable. And I think that's the other thing too, is a lot of people don't like the comfort. Feels weird, but you get used to it. And as long as they fit comfortably, it is not an uncomfortable situation. But eyewear for sure is something we want to make sure that we have goggles or some sort of face, eye shield. Let's see, Morris and Monica, I just have one layer of fabric, one that fits like a scarf over the mouth and nose. I would get, what I say is have a pair and a spare. So have one that you always can wear that's clean, and have one that you are cleaning or needs to be cleaned. Okay, so let me see, YouTube, I want to answer some questions. Oh, and by the way, tomorrow is Gabriel's last day of school, and apparently they're having like an online several hours of stuff. And so Brian has a meeting in the morning. I won't be able to do our live show tomorrow. Mommy duty calls, the essential worker of mom, running the video Google Hangout thing. I guess they're going to play games and do some things, interactive things on the iPad. And so I have to run that. And also Gabriel's talent show gets aired tomorrow. Woo! Very exciting. Okay, so let's see some questions here. My friend gets blood clots, told him about the proteolytic enzymes, and K2, don't forget K2 for blood clotters. Does tonic with zinc really work? I don't know what tonic with zinc means, but zinc is very powerful. I read MERV 14 to 16 material filter blocks about 95% of the virus. Yeah, so these types of filters, the 5-layer carbon filters, are very effective. There are some masks that have antibacterial nature. You just want to make sure you don't have, you're not wearing something that's going to be toxic for you to breathe in, which is something that we have to be cognizant as people start making their own. Let's see, what is the range? I had 95 last night, but checked again. So ideally, the range is between 97 and 100. I know, I'm talking a lot, so let's just see what my reading is. When I talk a lot, I don't breathe as much, and sometimes when you are not breathing as much, you have a different, oops, let me put this on. So we'll see. Let's see. Yeah, so the one thing too is depending on when you take your pulse ox, later in the evening, like closer to bedtime, even in the middle of the night, we reach our lowest levels at night. Okay, so what is that? 98. So I'm at 98. And I'm talking a lot. Like if I could go, I hit 99. So the breath will usually bump it up a little bit. But, that is, you will have a range, but 93, 91, 89, you're getting into a danger zone. And not in a bad way, but it's definitely, you're not getting enough oxygen. So, 95 at night, that's okay. What I would do is make sure you're doing some good deep breathing exercises before you go to bed. And the other thing too is sometimes we have allergy season that can cause a little congestion. So it's a little bit harder to get the oxygen levels in our body. Are the phone O2 scanners accurate? There are a lot of great apps, and that is something where, the oxygen pulse ox on your phones, they're highly effective. So, I know that there's sensitivity of the phones, and I think you just put your finger on it. I haven't seen anything that displays that's not accurate. Okay, so let's see. Letitia, I always have pink eye, or sometimes it gets red to where it looks like it. What can it be? It could be allergies. It could be mold exposure. I would run filters, filtration, salt lamps, and then chamomile. So chamomile, friends, for eyes, any type of ocular issue. Eye Bright is an awesome herb for eyes. And so it's something you can take orally, and depending on some of the drops. There's some really good homeopathic drops. Similicin is the brand. I always get them for my eye allergies. So my allergies here in Atlanta consist of my left eye getting really itchy and irritated. And a lot of times you can tell, like, it's irritated right now. I wear contacts, which makes it even worse. And there's some sort of irritant that it gets in my eye. I can't handle it. And so I use those drops several times a day, and then I neti pot, do saline spray, and then when it's really irritated and red, to reduce the redness, just grab some organic chamomile tea bags, brew up a little bit of hot water, boil by a little water, steep the chamomile tea in about that much water. And then you can just literally, like, once it cools down, comfortable to actually, rest on your eyelid, pull that up and just plop it on your eye. I'm not kidding you. It is miraculous. It gets rid of conjunctivitis, but it also gets rid of the irritation. Chamomile is so fantastic. Candy's Girl, Candelario, gave us a live super chat. Yay. Thank you, Candy's Girl. Dr. M, your info is very much appreciated. Thank you so much for what you do. How do I become a member? So to become a member, if you go to my main YouTube channel, and if you're a subscriber, it has you subscribe, but then all you have to do is click join, and join allows you to become a member. You get these cute little emojis, like Anaga and Pat have our newer member little emojis, or there's like a little, I guess it's an emoji. There's like a little banner next to your name. And then, like, if you guys scroll up, I think Lois is on. Yeah, Lois. Okay, so Lois has been a member for over a year. And so we have for like a new member, a month in, 3 months in, 6 months, a year. And then I think there's a 5-year like sparkly logo one. So those are fun. But thank you so much for your live super chat. I appreciate it. Okay, so good morning. How are you? What is the name of the collagen? Oh, the collagen brand is Lumen, Lumen, multi-collagen. And they've got the bone broth in it. They were yesterday's video. I actually was supposed to have a video sponsor for today, but I messed up some of my communication with their website details. So I'll have that on, not tomorrow, but on Friday. And I'm really excited because I've been using their stuff for some of my kind of puffiness as it relates to the allergy season. And I do a whole bunch of lymphatic stuff. And in fact, I'm actually probably going to be on one of my favorite vendors where I buy all of my skincare products. They have asked me to be on their Instagram channel, and I might lead everybody in a live demo of how to kind of do like lymph drainage and stuff on their Instagram live. So I'll keep you guys tuned to all that information. Well, thanks, Letitia. She's so wonderful. Letitia Martinez always does our live super chats, and I'm grateful for you. So happy to help. But chamomile for sure, and then the Similicin, they have eye drops, and they have like a red eye drops. Oh, basketball fan. Thanks for a reminder, Candy's Girl. Love to you, Dr. Melissa. Love to you. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are so sweet. Okay, Morris and Monica, if you guys go to the Instagram or DM me, we'll make sure we get you this link. But this is one of my friends is making these. She lost her job with COVID, and she is a very artsy seamstress, and she's been pumping these babies out and actually altered this to what I had asked her to do. So we've got like the wire in here. They're wonderful. I want to start being evaluated by the functional medicine approach and would like to know where to start. Any advice about that would be helpful. I always start with testing hormones. Start there. Cannot get on the YouTube chat like I had done forever and a day. Yeah, Lori, I don't know what is going on. YouTube's been all over the road. Can you touch on collagen? If not today, at some point. Let's see. I read an article saying it leads to breast cancer. Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with depending on the type of collagen, the source. You can source like really good bovine or animal marine-based collagen. The ones that are sourcing good, clean ingredients, GMO-free, you look at the manufacturers and where they're pulling. This is one of those categories where cheaper is not better. And some of like the box stores, like your Targets or your Costco's, are not always the best places to buy some of these items. Whitney, hey, Whitney, what's the name of the Bright Eyes brand you mentioned? So Eye Bright is an herbal. The Similicin, so this actually is what the company, this is what the logo looks like. And they have like a little cross, little like, health related cross. They have homeopathic eye drops. That and chamomile, done. It's so good. Let's see. Don't worry, Lori. So Eye Bright, like Herb Farm has an Eye Bright, but that is more internal. So you can take Eye Bright, and then chamomile is what I would do externally with the homeopathic. It's magical. I mean, and my eyes get really irritated and I can itch so much. Sometimes I will have disposable contact. Sometimes I will get like a little hole in the disposable contact and it's irritating. The homeopathic, sleeping on it, amazing. Our eyes are one of the fastest healing membranes in our body, which is pretty spectacular because they take a beating. And in fact, they're a frontline worker to our immune state. So that's why wearing goggles, or, this is more of an eye protective safety eyewear, where this would be for sure like the more intense goggles. And you could tighten this up and make it tighter and cinch it up. And depending on your face, like sometimes Gabriel and I will wear the same. And I actually grabbed things for him as well. So I have kids versions. So do not forget about your children, especially now that we're thinking about having them maybe going back to school, depending on your school district. But I saw a picture that was really kind of like, whoa, where kids were in a classroom, and it was in France. Kids are in a classroom and they've got full on masks and they have the eye or the face shield. That's just it's so surreal to think that might be happen. Dwayne, would it be better to have antibody tests done before a nasal swab? Depends on the antibody testing company, because some of them have not shown to be the most accurate. I would do both, to be honest with you, because you could have antibodies and you could have an active viral invasion. So you'd want to rule out both, since it does last so long. Robin, hey, Robin, you're the only person you can see that you are not even yours when they yell at me or something. Okay, I'm not quite sure what that means, but okay. Flying today, Christine, wearing husband's tinted goggles, starting the trend, hopefully, for some folks. Excellent. Yes. So the big thing is when you get off of the plane, clean those things. So, I would wait until you get to a place where it's maybe outdoors and just clean those really well. But good luck. Lots of sanitizer, gloves for sure on the plane. Don't drink the ice. Don't just really be really cognizant. So, but eyewear is critical. I had a friend that just flew recently. Ontario school is done. Yeah, we're done this week. Tomorrow's going to be a crazy day. And then I'm calling it Gabriel starts mommy camp. So we'll see how mommy camp goes. Let's see. I've got these hourglasses. That's good. I love that. Okay, so David's Garden says herd immunity. David, from David's Garden, herd immunity is not present. We don't even have more than 10% of the population impacted. There's no way for that to happen. And I don't think it will happen for at least a few, 3 or 4 years. So the idea of herd immunity is just false. And so we need to let that go, because it's not accurate. It's not going to happen. Wear your protective wear and be cognizant and not selfish and protect others. All right, Instagram, you guys are going to run away. Join me Friday. Tomorrow I'm taking off. Oops, let's see, Instagram. Let's see, let me say this. All right, so Instagram, I kind of cut him off a little soon. Okay, let me say that. All right, so, but yeah, David's Garden, the idea of herd immunity, it just doesn't exist. And I think that's the one thing that Sweden is showing, that they don't have herd immunity. And that's one of the reasons why the death rate per capita is so high. Yeah, a lot of people are speaking of herd immunity, and while it would be great if that occurred, we just don't have enough people exposed. And the other thing too is we need data. We need to have, it'd be one thing if we had antibody testing for everybody. And then we could say, okay, out of the whole entire population, 50% have it. That doesn't qualify as herd immunity, 50%. It just doesn't. So even the idea of herd immunity, people don't really understand what that means in terms of the percentage of the population that has to have either had it or been exposed to it asymptomatically or whatever shows antibodies. We don't know enough also about the virus and why individuals have it. They test positive, then they get rid of it. They might have viral shed, but they're negative. They have 2 negative tests. And then they come back 4 weeks later with a positive. So there's more that we need to know about this, and herd immunity just doesn't exist. So let's do away with that outdated, non-factually based thinking. It's just not going to happen. Aniga, is it okay to go for doing blood tests and ultrasound short procedures? I think depending on where the facility is, their kind of method and approach to dealing with folks, there are things that are coming back to normal, but I think unless it's absolutely critical, we are minimizing our exposure rate, but we also have an immunocompromised individual in our family. So everyone take off the mask and live normal lives. Nope, sorry, David, that's just not accurate. No, you can take off your mask and not wear your eye goggles. And guess what? You're going to have, as the study shows, a 66.7%, almost 70% risk of getting the infection. Do you want to be on a ventilator? Do you want to be in an ICU bed for several weeks? And can you afford that? I mean, this is something that we also have. People need to stop and get real. If you're willing to take that risk, do you have the financial capacity to take that risk? You might be thinking politically or socioeconomically or whatever that you're okay with that. And I respect that. But are you able to pay for that? And that is something that we all need to have an assessment on. Because if you're willing to do that, are you willing to put other people's lives at risk? Because you might even be asymptomatic. Could you live with yourself if you infected a young child that maybe had a heart transplant? Or a 30-year-old woman who's trying to get pregnant and has an autoimmune challenge? You get her sick and she passes it on to her grandmother and the grandmother dies? This is where we need to get outside of ourselves and stop being so selfish. Going out and living your own life. You can wear a mask and live your life. There's no lack of freedom there. You wear a bike helmet when you go biking. You should be wearing a seatbelt when you drive. Those are all things that don't restrict your freedom. This doesn't either. So stop with the stupidity, okay? I'm not calling you stupid, but that mindset, we need to get out of that, like snap out of it. It's not helpful. It's not beneficial. And in fact, it's negligent and it's harmful. You are inflicting harm with that BS and bogus information. So, I mean, really, like I am all for people having different opinions, but when we go beyond and your selfishness now impacts other people, we have enough raw scientific data that showcases lack of wearing masks is infectious. It causes the infection to grow. And we're seeing that. Look at the US. Look at all of the countries that implemented social distancing. They disinfected, they locked down, and people wore masks and were compliant. The fact of a lack of compliance is mind-blowing. So I ask you, David, why are you so selfish? Comment down below and let us know, because your selfishness is a risk to your community. Just plain and simple. So amen. Cheers to that. Do. Just crazy. And the thing is that coming on here, I'm not a receptive audience to that because I'm factually based in all my information and data. And I've been reporting to this community for over 10 weeks with data and research. There's nothing in here that you can try and spin that would have us think otherwise, because the data showcases the benefits. And the data that I will post today, and I don't care where this study comes from, which I know a lot of people, oh my God, it's coming from China, Hong Kong. Here's the deal. Science is not dead. This showcases the transmission of the virus and showcases when we have a barrier, it drops the transmission rate by 75%. That's significant. So that's the truth, that's scientific data. And you should not go run off and tout this to any other place or channel or social media site that you want to pander this BS, because there are people who are going to believe that and inflict harm. Look at a lot of these doubters and these people who are like, oh, it's false and I'm not going to wear a mask. And then they interview them and they're hooked up to machines on oxygen. And they're like, I really wish I would have thought otherwise. Hindsight's 2020. Don't be one of those people. Get your facts, get educated. And I welcome you to watch my channel every day where you can get educated, empower yourself. Be open-minded, David's Garden, because open-minded will not only save you, but the world around you. So that's all I have to say on that. Thanks you guys for listening. That's my soapbox. People on here that come out with this, it's just crazy. And the fact that we have the highest number of cases like Carroll, St. Andrew. I've not sold out. The data is a lie. See, that is just so... It's so overused, overplayed. It's so mundane. The data is scientific research. And I don't even know why people come out like that. I mean, it's just crazy. That what you're saying, David, is the data doesn't support your argument. So the only thing you can do is say it lies. I will tell you who has lied. Georgia, the Department of Health, is altering their data on a sheet to make people like you think you're safe to not wear masks. That's who's lying here in Georgia. You know who else is lying? Florida. The state, the website, the director of the website for the COVID database, that individual posted misleading, wrong data, and it was manipulated. If anything, you should be more concerned about that lie and that misinformation than factual studies that have been peer reviewed and posted in one of the most prestigious journals out there. So it's not a lie. Your argument is completely unfounded, and the only thing you can say is it's a lie. That's just really mature, really, really mature. So anyway, friends, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. I really hope, David, that you do start to investigate, because it's your life that's at risk. And we have got to stop with this nonsense. And what I say is support with the backup of that the data is a lie. And the reality is that I highlight all this information. We are underestimating, we're seeing, like in Florida, the amount of deaths related to COVID, it's lower. So if anything, the data that's a lie is actually for even more promotive of why you should be wearing a mask. Okay, so yes, thanks, Letitia. Please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. I appreciate that. The lies are not for profit. I've investigated, Buttercup. You know what? Then post it. Post all your data, because it's bogus. And yes, boo on Georgia Department of Health. They got definitely rocked big time. They were called out because the thing is data does not lie. Science and the information, it does not lie. Sometimes we can see different changes in terms of progression, but we're also dealing with a new virus, unlike anything we've ever seen. And this is unprecedented. So, and if you've investigated online, consider your sources. The other thing that is under play is that there are other countries that are using your ignorance and your idea that things are a lie. They're actually causing you to be a sheep. They're taking advantage of social media and advertising and posting of non-founded data. They're posting infographics that are totally fake. They're manipulated, falsified information, and you are believing it hook, line, and sinker. So it's time to definitely get educated. And what you can find here is that I will always give you information that's straight down the middle. I'll tell you straight out, Georgia has failed us in terms of reporting their info, but they were called out and they actually made the adjustments. Florida, we'll see how they react and respond. Is every individual, every person, every source, every government completely straight, narrow? Are they by the book? Sometimes they're not, but I always want to give them the benefit of the doubt to make a correction. And that's where I stand with kind of seeing where Georgia, how they're going to continue to report this. And then also in Florida. Okay. So Carol, thank you so much for tuning in. And Babu, it's not each to their own. Wear a mask or not as you wish and live and let live. No, we're beyond that. We have the highest infection rate. We're 5 times higher than the rest of the country. Any of you frustrated by staying at home, the economic difficulties you lost your job, if all of us wore masks, we would reduce this spread by 75%. And then we could get back to normal. I want to get there as much as you, because we're even looking at maybe not having Gabriel in school next year, which will be life-changing for all of us, particularly me and my clinical practice. But it's not looking like we're going to have a safe fall, because a lot of yahoos out there thinking, oh, let live, peace, love, whatever. Don't steal my civil liberties by wearing a mask. If you wear a seatbelt, you should be fine wearing a mask. I mean, really, it's just craziness. So anyway, David and Babu, come to the Bronx in New York City. That's right. I mean, there are cases that are so, there's just, you can't get around it. Okay. So Aunt Arnie says, I work with our volunteer full-time fire department. Oh, that's great. When this first started, they told us to use PPE protocols, the same as the flu. Now look at what we have to do. This virus is not a joke. Thank you, Arnie. Or no, I'm sorry, Arnie. I need readers, friends. Amy Green. Thanks, Amy. And this is the thing, the frontliners, you guys are experiencing it more than any of us. And the fact is that when people like Babu and David's Garden say what they say, they minimize your efforts. They minimize your experience, and they are just completely shut down to the reality of our situation. It's not going away. It's going to get worse. We're going to have a second wave, and we might get there sooner because people are not taking heed. And why? I just don't understand it. Okay. I got to run. My little man, I got to get on with our day with him. But tomorrow, wish me luck. Last day of school. And the mommy camp kicks off Friday morning. And so I'll be back Friday. I'm going to share with you a really great skincare product with some really great anti-inflammatory properties that I think you guys will like as one of our video sponsors. And I am very, very grateful. So, and Babu, this whole idea that Judy McVotis, she actually invented the virus, that's just bogus. Like, come on. Stop. Crazy talk. All right, friends, have a great day. Thank you for all joining. And for our super chatters, I'm so grateful for your contribution to our channel here. It totally makes me happy. Basketball fan and Candy's girl, you guys are so great. I'm so grateful. All right, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, stay well, and grab those eye goggles. Bye.